Hello and welcome to Letsfixitinpod, our little show in the VFX universe. So in this episode, in our typical fashion with 1 month delay, we're going to take a look into the future of 2025 and what's coming up this year. After that, we're going to have a very special guest, Bela. Now you know Bela as our host, but this time I'm going to roast him about what's happening to the digital production magazine.
So, the future, Christoph, what's going to happen?
Oh, let me take out my crystal ball on that one. So I'm taking a close peek into the future, and I see, let's say, interesting times ahead. I would suggest that we can expect some of the fallout of recent elections. Some people might have noticed. So that will keep the economy not only here in Germany, but also across the pond, let's say, in a kind of limbo until things have settled.
I think that will be a rather positive development because this focus on the US market will tone down a little bit. And we've seen with the releases of last year how little innovative things are happening there. It's always just prequels, sequels, part 2, a live action remake, a animated remake of the live action remake of the animated movie, who was still a remake of a Shakespeare play. So these things, I don't think they will keep their momentum. And for other parts of the creative world, that will be a chance to go out from under that dominance.
It's really interesting what you see, because each time has got its kind of media that people like to consume. So there was a certain trend after 9/11. There was a certain trend in the mid 2010s towards the superhero movies. And yeah, we are in a paradigm shift for sure. We are in uncertain times. So I'm really looking forward to see what people will find to be their media comfort food in these challenging times.
When talking about the US elections and the involved persons, I think what we're currently seeing is the fall of the big social media companies, because let's be honest, Twitter. Recently, so this might be just my perspective, but any kind of news where somebody said something of at Twitter ends with exactly that sentence. This is not news. This is bullshit. So this. That somebody said that they don't need to fact check anymore. So Mark Zuckerberg, Scientologist and aficionado of drinking vinegar filtered through persons. I read so on Facebook, so it must be true. They don't check for truth anymore. So
they don't need to anymore. So yeah,
this wave of the last 10 years where everything was social media is going to go down a bit, especially for professional use. It's going to be probably LinkedIn and one or two others that you're just going to post to, but not really interact. I think that stuff like YouTube and these creation platforms, not the I'm typing something, but I'm actually thinking about what I'm typing or saying or shooting or drawing or whatever. This will have a sharp uptick, and the user-generated content will be toned down, and everybody will realize that no, you don't need that dumpster fire.
You and I both talked off screen a lot about how we further and further along trained our social media feeds to only include sarcastic memes and cat videos.
People, sort out your feeds. If you don't like the defollow the people. If it's all advertising, say, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see this. These algorithms need training. Train them to what you want to see.
And doom scrolling is so 2022. But it tells you another thing, and that endorses what you said about the fading relevance of social media. yeah, we trained our feeds, we really encapsulate those, but they are really just for fun stuff anymore. It's not business relevant. It's not news relevant. It shouldn't be, because this trend of social media just becoming a major propaganda megaphone is really disturbing, and it takes me off social media. And yeah, I'm above 40, so I'm not up for TikTok or Snapchat or any of those things. I'm more the Facebook and Instagram generation, and yeah, spend less and less time on that.
Another thing that I'm seeing with that cast of members is that studios will shift in the world, because the Canadian tax incentives are in a state of flux. Some of them weren't renewed, some of them might be renewed. It's Canada, I love you, but get your together. The US tax incentives are still not that good, because the different states are competing. The European Union is very slow to react in this, but from what I hear, there will be things coming soon. The UK is doing something as well. So this, let's call it the Western production world, is shifting, but other areas of the world are still there. All right, you don't get a Russian tax incentive these days.
Well, if you're Russian, you'll get a Russian tax incentive, because propaganda needs to be subsidized by the state. I think one thing that we can really see, and I saw on a couple of Discords in the recent days, a lot of questions and dismay with tax incentives stopping and starting. And one thing we'll hopefully see is that in the future, tax incentives will be set up in a more sustainable way. So, I mean, here in Germany, we've got a federal system, once again, 16 different federal states. Each state does it differently. Some do it very poorly. Some do it, in my honest opinion, very cleverly. So what do I mean by sustainable? I think, yeah, you can take that money and just throw it at any production, give them 50 cents on the dollar rebate, and you'll have a great production. And once somebody gives you 60 cents on the dollar, they are gone. The other way you can set that up, and that's something I really envy about the southern federal states here in Germany, is that money was used to build up infrastructure. So if we take a look at our dearly beloved FMX and everything surrounding that, that is a brainchild out of the tax incentives that were used in Baden-Württemberg. And it built up a academy where a lot of great young artists come into the industry, where there's a network where if you have a production, you can actually call there and have somebody introduce you to the local vendors, local suppliers. And that, for me, is a way where you can build up an industry in a way. Actually, 20 years ago, nobody talked about Stuttgart as a VFX place. There was some local stuff going on there. And once money poured in there, it started to become this place where really by now major productions are being done, where one of the most important events in our industry is happening on a yearly basis. So, yeah, I would hope to see more of this kind of tax incentive in the future, because that way not only the local artists get something beyond an insurance that they'll be employed for the next 2 years, and then they'll wonder where they can move after the next tax incentives, but also this is something that benefits across state boundaries. FMX is such an institution by now.
The MFG, die Medienförderungsgesellschaft, such a very German word, is doing
really German.
Is doing really well. Is planning these things for years ahead. So it's not just we have this politician who says we have to do this and we're going to do this and then we're going to stop it. No, they really built something with the Film Academy, with the Animationsinstitut at Film Academy, and also what they're doing very well is they are not insular. So they are doing cooperations with EU projects, with other universities, stuff like that. So they understood that VFX is a team sport, and they partake in that in a foreseeable way. And this is something that actually really, really helps. Another thing I want to mention with that is investing in infrastructure and versus investing in just projects. The thing is, with just projects, you can do that, but those have to use sparingly and with an eye towards whom you're. It doesn't help if you give a international production company free access to your resources and the circus moves on. The vendors who will be partaking in the regional stuff, they will just hope for the next project, but it's not going to be plannable. Another thing I think that is very relevant is investing in secondary production companies. You need, for example, stuff like virtual production stages, large sound stages, a easy way to get filming permissions, things like that.
If we talk about looking into 2025 and what is happening, then of course we have to talk about the fallout of the end of the streaming wars. We can all agree that Disney Plus, Netflix, Prime, and so forth are not spending as much money as they did before. And if we take a look at recent years, especially in European countries, before the streamers, the film and movie and even the television industry was very dependent on either having a broadcaster who fully financed you or being dependent on state subsidies. And the introduction of the streamers finally allowed productions on a big scale, which were not state funded, but industry or economy funded.
Privately funded, yeah. Hard
to think of some conglomerates like Amazon as private, but yeah, you're correct, privately funded. I really, really hope that the financial side of our industry learned its lesson and does not fall back to, we need those subsidies, otherwise everything will crumble. Because if there's something to take away from the recent years is, yes, we can work privately funded, and some great projects have been done. And really, I feel often, especially here in Germany, I don't know that much about how it is in other countries, but in Germany, that often meant so many cooks in the kitchen that it really watered down the soup, so to speak.
Yeah, there's this wonderful phrase for a lot of German homegrown productions called cineastischer Magerquark. And meaning the stuff that was produced was, it was just bad. Boring,
mediocre.
80s style.
Yeah.
And mediocre was one of the tentpole productions. It's a dozen faces that have to be in any production. And, oh God, please don't do anything innovative. Don't do anything too advanced. Don't do anything that could ruffle some feathers. Come on, people, this is not the way to do it.
Take a look at productions like the Polish series 1984. Take a look at Cleo. Take a look at Lillehammer or any of these series. Nobody outside of Norway, for example, would have watched a Norwegian series before. But now, thanks to the streamers, that was possible. And also I named two examples who didn't have like this huge budget, but were produced on a normal scale, I would say. And I think that's something I especially with Netflix and Prime and so forth cutting the steady money flow somewhat, I look forward to see more medium budget production, which probably will be a little bit more innovative because they just can't count on having huge spectacular setups, but rather have to work via storytelling.
Let's be honest, the last couple of years we learned that there's great TV, great episodic productions, great smaller movies all around the world. And the thing we can learn from the streaming wars is that good stuff will find an audience, even if it's quite deep in the genre. So producing these days, you can do both. You can have something highly regional, and that might find an international or global audience. This is possible.
Squid Game,
for example. Still haven't seen that. Not a fan of squids, too many tentacles, and I never looked into it. Maybe the public broadcasters and different kinds of streaming services will realize that they can license these productions and have a wide audience for that, and have a huge catalog of stuff that is interesting, is well made. And for the regional production companies, that's a chance to, okay, maybe I do that with in a cooperation with some tax incentive, with some public broadcaster, but I look toward a second use on Netflix, Prime, whatever. Then it's something that I'm still hoping for, and I still see in the future somewhat, is a third life of that instead of DVDs, because who does that anymore?
Physical media is gone.
The YouTube stuff. Because I've recently talked to a friend in a company, and they're doing a series. It's going to be an animation series. It's going to be fun. It's comedy stuff. And they released it on a regional network, one of those small TV stations. And it was fun. It was great. And their second release cycle will be on YouTube. And thinking that the AdSense money from YouTube will finance part of it.
That's something I really see for the next couple of years as another fallout of the end of the streaming wars, is that this whole idea of having a franchise just on one streamer exclusively and all of that content there, that will break. And we are seeing the very first shatters of that. Star Wars will always be on Disney Plus, let's be real. But going to another favorite sci-fi franchise, we could see that already happening with Star Trek. So there was this great young adult show called Star Trek Prodigy. And originally that was on Paramount Plus and I think on Nickelodeon in the US. And then our favorite friends from middle management decided to cancel that show, even though the second season was almost finished in production. As Star Trek fans do, they rallied. They wanted to see that second season. And what happened? Netflix picked it up. Even though a couple of years before, all the new Star Trek content was pulled from Netflix internationally because Paramount Plus wanted to gatekeep that exclusively on their platform. So what I predict, I think there will be some initial releases that then are exclusive to the respective streamers. So there will be shows that initially just show up on Disney or on Paramount or Hulu or whatever. But we will see distribution once again to different platforms after their initial run. And yes, YouTube should be part of that.
So what I see is in the far future, the big movies, they will have a cinematic release, yes, but at the same time they're going to be on the streaming platform of the production company. That will be on Paramount, on HBO, whatever. Simultaneously to the cinema, they will be exclusive to there for half a year or something like that, and then they will gonna go out into everything. And the streaming platforms of the big production houses, of the Netflixes and Primes and whatever's, will be more of a repository of all the things they did. So, for example, that on Paramount you have everything Star Trek. If you are a Trekkie, this is your platform. You're going to see everything there first and complete, and all the series whenever you need. Let's be honest, we all need a bit of TOS once in a while.
We had that discussion last weekend. My wife was going through our streaming services, and she said, maybe can we cancel one? How about Netflix? And I said, yeah, you might probably take that argument with our kids who enjoy some of the shows there. And then she said, yeah, and what about Paramount Plus? And I said, never. That's the home of Star Trek. And no, that's my pleasure, and you will not take away my Star Trek.
So which ones did you cancel?
None. because she wasn't willing to give up Prime. The kids weren't willing to give up Netflix, and I wasn't able to give up Paramount Plus. So we decided that is necessary expense. And we need to support our industry. That's my killer argument each and every time. Yeah, but look, that show paid our bills for 5 months.
Coming back to the argument, this exclusive walled garden, I don't think that's going to work anymore. And as a production company, now might be a good time to start researching distribution networks and get your stuff ready to distribute it wildly, because all of them have different delivery formats, delivery requirements. If you update your pipeline now to be ready for whatever platform you want, if it's just one click to play it out on YouTube or on Netflix or on this or that, if you have time this year, maybe look into something like that and make sure that your platform is ready for that. This might be a good investment in the future.
One interesting aspect that I've seen, and I actually worked on one of these shows, is that there is a trend starting that shows are being produced independently by just one financier, and they'll finish the whole show before they even start distributing. And so I think that's one of the changes we can look forward to as well, is that maybe you don't want to have Netflix or Prime or Disney or whomever in always breathing down your neck and giving you notes on your show, but rather finish the vision that you have and then sell it to them and say, well, that's the product, take it or leave it.
We've seen in the last years, for example, Dune Prophecy went through a load of rewrites and reshoots, and these people changed and that people, and come on, people. The streamers have gotten so much middle management, so much pixel, and no, we want this, no, we have this, but. Come on, finish the season and then we're gonna see on. And I think that this will be beneficial for the storytelling and the consistency of the stuff. You can change stuff in the second season, all right. It's developing.
Every artist who listens to this had this one show he worked on where he got far more notes from the streamer than from the actual director of the show, and that somehow feels wrong.
I've talked to supervisors on quite large shows, which I won't name, which usually rarely give notes to the artists. Their job is collating the notes from the production company, because every marketing droid will have this and this and this and this, and their job is becoming political, negotiating these conflicting notes into something the artists can actually do. Give that more punch, make this more muted.
Let's get back to predictions. So that was a lot about distribution and content, but let's take a look at software. What do you think will happen software-wise, Bela?
I think we have a rough couple of years ahead for people using smaller packages. Without naming any names, a couple of them, even if they're part of a large company, they are end of life. We've seen it with Modo this year. There are a couple of others who will be announced in the next couple of months that their either development will slow to a crawl, halt completely, or the company will be dissolved. I've talked to one who will open source their product, because as a smaller software developer, you can't go the subscription route. It's quite difficult. And if you have only one or two or three small products, plugins and stuff like that, you can either try to get it distributed on Blender Market, ArtStation, whatever. But that's a load of work. The other offerings are sometimes from quite big companies who actually try to kill competition. And I think we're going to see a lot of these smaller companies folding in the next 1 or 2 years. And either abandoning the product or selling it off or just open sourcing it. I hope they're open sourcing it to stuff, but it's getting very, very rough for all these smaller 1-2 person companies, keeping that alive and keeping the momentum. because if you have only one software, you have a very limited amount of people you can sell your plugin to. Even some of the medium-sized companies are struggling. So I think we're going to see that. And so for you as an artist, if the forum of your preferred software isn't that active anymore, maybe if you have a free afternoon, look around what else you could use, because that's something that's going to happen.
I've for a long time been proposing to my fellow artists to really stick to a second set of software. Single software artists are really always in a tight spot, because firstly, you're really dependent that your potential clients use that specific software. And that way you're really closing down your potential market. And honestly, it doesn't matter if we're talking 3D applications or compositing or simulation or whatever. The basic concepts are similar. Yes, there are big differences between software, but then again, if you know the craft, then it's much easier to learn a second or third piece of software, because you know what you're looking for. You're basically just learning the
interface
specific
and the
interface and the
functionality.
application. For example, I was originally just a Flame guy, and if I would have stuck just with Flame, I would still be pretty gated into the commercials market, and everybody here in Germany knows how that is going right now. So broadening myself up to Nuke, and thereby being able to also pick up jobs in the long form editorial and that kind of market, streaming series and so forth, really saved me, especially during COVID. So with another storm coming in, diversify yourselves.
And this doesn't mean that you're going to have to change everything, but get a second tool set, because also, as we've seen with keeping the example of Modo, you don't have any control about these companies. These decisions are made far, far above all our heads and so far above our pay grades, and you just have to swallow it. There's a couple of safe bets with tools that are gonna stick around. Maybe get one of those. We got Adobe's not gonna go bust. Blackmagic's gonna stay around. Blender's gonna stay around. Besides that, I wouldn't bet on anything. Even giant companies with a enormous tool set like Maxon or something like that are not immune. And companies like Autodesk, which are not primarily a media entertainment company.
Autodesk is too big for, not for its own good, but for Flame's good. It's such a niche product inside their portfolio that they actually don't care that much. Not the developers. I don't wanna slide here anybody here.
The Flame team cares, but for your information, Autodesk makes most of its money these days with engineering, product lifecycle management, architecture, and these kinds of CID design stuff. And my last actual numbers were from 2021, I think, and the complete media entertainment area, which includes stuff like Maya, like 3ds Max, like Flame, like Mudbox, like so many tools, Luster, and so forth, was less than 4%. So in our industry, those are really big players. You can't avoid 3ds Max, however you want to try to avoid 3ds Max. It is one of the big tools, but for the owners of 3ds Max, it's just one of many, many, many tools. And their political and financial decisions can disrupt everything. Of course, also, shout out to my old Softimage buddies.
We feel your pain. So, talking about software, do you want to hear my prediction?
Gimme.
As every software nowadays does, I also need to drop the big AI moniker here. So you're nothing without that. So let's quickly talk about AI and then continue with the serious stuff. No, but in all honesty, I think we're going to see a peak in the AI hype. I think We've been properly saturated with weird videos of food turning into animals and cats slicing up food and all that.
What do you mean? The cats preparing food? That was AI? Come on.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it.
Fluff! What's for lunch? I thought my cat was preparing something.
No, your cat just flipped you off. Probably.
You know that cat.
I do. No, I think we'll see a peak in the AI hype, which will have a couple of reasons. Firstly, these companies will finally want to make money on those, and once we start to learn how a company is gonna probably take a revenue for that, AI is gonna be a lot less attractive. So that's one reason. Second one is we are gonna hit a peak in how training these models is still feasible. It's just we are already at a content limit because everybody is by now fencing off its content from AI scraping. So that's gonna be an issue for the AI companies. And also there are a couple of experts out there who said that, like with any craft, you can teach something pretty easily up to 80%.
Yeah.
And the last 20% really take a lot more effort, meaning a lot more training data to achieve very little improvement. And we're at that peak of this very steep curve where it really, from a business side of sense, will probably not make much sense to invest that much money into further and further training just to get it really right.
And also we're going to see that for general office use, ChatGPT, let's keep it with the example of ChatGPT. Machine learning is a different beast. We've talked about that. But for example, ChatGPT is perfectly fine for everyday correspondence. But writing a actual news, it's going to be difficult. So they're going to need the same amount or even more effort to go into something that will not make the money or get them many users. So I talked to a friend of mine yesterday. He's doing a course on programming PHP and Python stuff in with Copilot, and he's testing it and using it for efficiency's sake, and he's quite disillusioned. We should get him on the show. It's gonna be interesting. The business behind the big boom is faltering because their core products are suffering because everything is invested in AI. Basically, it's the hype. Everything gets pulled into that, and the development of the thing that you actually need and want stalls or even goes back. If companies like Microsoft and Amazon and stuff with the monies have that problem that they don't really see a return of invest. Imagine what will happen to smaller developers. They have their AI features in there, and some applications that are based on AI, but they will falter if either the compute power in the background gets more expensive, or if they run out of people who want to even try it. Because as far as I've seen, a couple of artists, when there's something, they react to contains AI the same way as told on Twitter. Ignore. And
it's
oversaturated.
We're starting to feel the backlash. But I want to give this a little bit more of a positive spin, and that would be that I think we'll also start to see the first tools using machine learning and AI in a much more sensible manner. And that would be more, I want to see more AI in the grunt work. Yeah. So I would love to see an AI-powered conform feature where it actually matches my offline and my online, which is tedious work, but it's not as marketable as AI-generated images. Yeah. I want to see compare features. I want to see quality control assisted AI. Yeah. AI-assisted quality control. That way around it makes sense. Other would be a mess.
Well,
I would like to see I would like to see tagging features or search features. I think in the recent digital production, there's a great article on how AI might actually benefit search and tagging functionality.
Everybody, if you haven't read the article, the tool is called Cara 1, CARA. Have a look at it. It's quite interesting, and we've seen exciting demos for everyday work. So not the flashy, give me a Star Wars destroyer in a Star Trek setting, but in where the is my footage? And that's quite interesting. Going back to Nuke and something like that, Copycat version 3 or 4, I think they're on version 2.
I think.
So the next couple of iterations of these machine learning tools will be quite powerful, and the denoising stuff now with the new cards from NVidia, those will gain traction and actually help.
So Bela, are there any obvious predictions that we missed?
Well, then obviously there's going to be a couple of studios who are going to fold or merge or something.
Yeah, I think that one is pretty obvious, still unsettling, and still worth taking apart a little bit. So what we've seen, especially with smaller studios, boutique studios, is in the last couple of years is a really unimaginative race to the bottom. So each and every hype cycle, each and every transformation our industry has been in for the last 15 years or so has been met by, what are we going to do about that? Well, maybe we should just lower our prices. And that's the classical race to the bottom that you can only lose. And we are finally hitting that moment where that will just implode in on itself, and it'll sadly take some good companies away. But honestly, if you haven't come up with a way to sell your business apart from pricing, then probably you don't have a business model.
I think what we're going to see is either very specialized studios focusing on just one job. So this is going to be the simulation studio, because all the bigger productions these days already have dozens and dozens of studios. And you have for your previs, if you just use the third floor, they are very specialized. And I think in this case, they are a model for the future. They do just that. They do that very well, but they're going to do just that. And so we're going to see studios specializing on crowd work, on sim, on pipeline. I can imagine a world where there are studios just setting up pipelines.
That is a great business model, and something that we've seen, especially in the commercial area. So if you are basically a vendor, not a creative place, but more like supplying a service, that's great. But be self-aware that, for example, if your studio has the capability to very quickly accommodate this huge commercial job with 300 versions delivered in 5 different formats, and you've got all the network to pull in freelancers, you've got the server structure to support that, all that, then be courageous enough to properly bill that to your client, and not cave in on the first, the budget is low, but we still need to do that. If you then offer that for 30 or 30% rebate, then your client will think two things. Firstly, you're either desperate, or secondly,
you've been overbilling for all the time.
So what I would hope for, but that is not a prediction, this is just my very sincere hope, that the studios out there, film and commercial alike, please be more resilient towards this whole game of give us a rebate, give us a discount. Please just stop it.
You don't have to take every job. And also one thing that might be useful for the future is work with other studios in terms of shared infrastructure. So not everybody has to have a giant render farm. You can have one studio with the giant render farm, and everybody uses that. Bringing us back to Stuttgart, they have their giant scientific supercomputer thingy, and they rent that out for others to render on it. So this is cost you can invest into something that you actually need, meaning your artists, and get that. Another prediction I want to make, but I'm not sure about it, so take this with a giant grain of salt. And depending on the day, time of day when you listen to that, a bit of lemon and a tequila, is that the cloud-based workflows, especially for footage, are going to go smaller and smaller and smaller, or going to die off, because everybody has seen the big AWS bill coming in. And a couple of studios I talked to, they use AWS for metadata, for virtualization of machines. Yes, but not for footage, not for rendering, not for sim work, because it's easier to have just a couple of cards in some backroom instead of the fluctuating prices and availabilities of these giant cloud platforms. So I think it's going to be a connector, not a storage place.
Yeah, but it's the same hype train. And if we remember, right before the whole AI hype train pulled through our industry, there were two things coming from Silicon Valley that were pushed to no end, and that was big data and, of course, the cloud. Everything had to move into the cloud. Every app had to move into the cloud. There was this thing called Ethera. We both talked about that on that show. That was very fastly put together, and very soon after that it was killed. It had a lifetime of 2 years and better or something. Then we have seen how Autodesk put Flame into the cloud, and I've seen some jobs done with it, but the bottleneck was always the footage. And everyone, I mean, honestly, you expect me to do an online with, let's say, 2 hours of rushes where I constantly have to get back to, load that up to Weka, and then I have to do renders for 300 different versions and cutdowns and formats and deliverables. You've got these tons of footage. Then I also have to download. And honestly, if you do the math, it might be cheaper to get yourself a workstation, use it on that job, rent a license out for that month, and then you can sell off that workstation, and you're as flexible. And taking delivery of that workstation will probably take the same time or less than uploading the whole footage to your cloud provider.
I've seen that in studios who shall not be named, and probably know by that which studios I mean, who are running around with external drives because their internal network is cloud-based, because they're so fashionable, and it doesn't work. So the overall infrastructure is saturated more or less fully with the I have to download this and this and this and this, and it's these days for them in some jobs it's easier just to get a drive, label it shot 1 2 3 4 5 and carry that to the next office, or in some cases to send that out to the comper working on that shot, because the idea is great, but it's A, not plannable, and B, it has still some big flaws. So especially smaller productions might be completely offline. And for example, getting a bolt storage or something like that, a NAS basically, and having everything on there and connecting the workstations and shipping this might be faster and easier and safer and more plannable in terms of what's the cost, because there's always going to be some intern or newbie who just downloads everything so he's got it ready, and the egress costs will gonna kill your margins. So this is something I see, that the software side, the metadata side, the pipeline side will go more into the cloud, and the actual footage will stay on premise.
The cloud workflow still has got all kind of different issues in regard to all the clearances you have to do. For example, if you want to work on car commercials or on a Marvel production and all that, is still not really sorted out, or it might be with your current setup, but once something gets changed, get updated, a new faster cloud storage is there, yeah, but are they certified for that kind of work? It really gives you another monkey to throw wrenches into your pipeline.
That's another prediction. We'll see if it happens. And if this is the last episode, I have been murdered by some Amazon employee.
Oh, the ninjas are already outside your window?
Sorry, no, outside it's snowing, so the ninja's taken the day off.
Let me Google white ninja costume.
A further small prediction, somehow triggered by the word costume. What I predict for the next 2 years is the emergence of everybody 3D printing. For your information, a couple of readers asked me to look into that, if that's really these days affordable and usable. I've been playing around with it. I've been doing some research, and yes, it's becoming very, very easy to do. And with asking around people I know to do props or things like that, this is something of a completely solved problem in the industrial way. And the lower tier, the I need this tool or I need to have this prop for this shot or whatever, this is becoming quite easy. So I think in 2026 every studio will have 1 or 2 multicolor 3D printers running in some backroom, because we need this stuff. And from what I've seen with studios I know who already do that, those things are running basically all the time, because as you know, one of my topics is workplace ergonomics, and they are printing extensions for their keyboards and seating and whatever. And this is something that I see as something that's gonna be widely adopted in a very short time.
If you're interested in 3D printing for costumes, I really can only suggest the making ofs on the first season of Star Trek Discovery, where they take apart the whole costume process, and they've done great stuff with the 3D printing of little details, from everything from small badges to really intricate patterns, something that couldn't be done before. So it's really fascinating, and this is something that you might at first glance say, yeah, what do I care about costumes on a VFX podcast? But honestly, I think we're gonna also see those different disciplines even merging further and further, because production design, of course, influences both departments, and apart from that, also set building and all that. So yeah,
I do think that we're going to see very soon props that are going to be both digital and physical. Let's say helmets, armor, stuff like that. And you as a 3D artist will have to design this, and the prop department will gonna print it. So if you know how to handle a printer and what are the general capabilities are, that's gonna be a real leg up for you.
Okay, Letsfixitinpod has got a brand new exclusive reveal. We are talking to the brand new owner of Digital Production Magazine.
It's a me! Yeah.
So you bought yourself a magazine.
Yeah, I thought, well, what should I get myself for Christmas? And that's not the reason behind it. But since January 1st, Digital Production is me. It has been me and the authors for a very long time. But there was always some middle management and a publishing house. But by now it's you're looking at the complete company.
So to clarify, before it was owned by a publishing house, or actually various publishing houses through the years, and now you as a person are the sole owner of the magazine.
Digital Production was founded in 1996, and since then and now there were a couple of different publishing companies owning that, all of them with other magazines, sometimes within our broad topic, sometimes completely removed from that. And that never really got that effect that everybody is growing together. So and the current company, called Busch Glatz GmbH, is going through a bankruptcy / Chapter 11 / litigation right now since middle of last year, so middle of 2023. And and so the CEO of the company asked me if I wanted to buy out digital production. And after serious consideration, I said yes.
Did I understand that correctly? You now own digital production, which encompasses what exactly?
So right now, the state of things are that I own the brand digital production, the archive, the contact data for the subscribers, which is something that's currently in the works. To do that right and not in the ways that have been proposed by others. And also there's this tiny little thing called... Yeah, that's still also part of it. So all of this is now owned by me and not by somebody who never been to an Animago or has ever read a digital production, which was sometimes a problem in the past, but not anymore in the future. And so with that... all of you out there being digital production readers or subscribers or anything, it's going to basically stay the same.
So in the current business climate for printed press products, this seems like a rather jaunted move. Could you tell us a little bit of what you're actually planning with digital production in the future?
The future is going to be interesting, especially in the near future. So let's talk about this year, 2025. The plan is to focus on an online version, an English-speaking online version, because in this business, pretty much everybody speaks English, and there's the rest of the world to consider. So that's one thing. Print is not dead, but it's taking a very long nap currently. So the idea is to get the company founded and the financing together, because none of this stuff is cheap, and then see if I can go back to print. Either in a reduced way with only doing the creative stories, or back to the old ways, or something else, or a coffee table edition, which has been proposed by others. So yeah, it's not dead, but it's taking a step back for the near future.
When you say that things are moving online, I reckon it will not be like you can download a PDF of digital production every 2 months. This is going to be a little bit more fluent, right?
Doing a online magazine and just giving PDFs for download does not make any sense at all, because the stuff that takes time and money and effort and is layouting that into, why should I do a print layout if I only gonna go online? If we decide to go back to print, I can just export it from the website. So I'm not losing any data or any files or a single word. But for the production of the articles, online is just so much better and faster, and we can do all these amazing things like embed videos or short clips which explain what's actually happening in the software. With a 3-second clip says more than 1,000 words. So I have high hopes for that this will make especially workshops easier to follow and shorter and better. And another thing is that with the creative stories, so the stories about projects, about student projects, about companies, about studios, about their stuff, things they're doing, you can just embed the video and everybody can see what it is, and you don't have to pick out 8 frames and have that represent everything. So that, I hope, helps to get the storytelling and the look and feel of the projects better than 8 frames on a page.
So if I'm a current subscriber to Digital Production Magazine, what do I have to do in the next couple of weeks?
There's a lot happening, obviously. So the stuff that's for you to do is not a lot currently, because sometime soon you gotta get an email to your registered address, and then you can log into the paywall area. There will be quite a lot of stuff in there. What will be there is a complete archive of digital production in PDFs. So all the ones I have on the issues I worked with will be there just for you to download. No fluffy e-paper thing or whatever, just it's a PDF. You want the article or you want the whole issue, click on it and you're going to have it. So that's for one thing. Another thing that's going to happen over time is that all the old articles will be on the website in English, but that translating takes time to do even halfway decently. And there will be new articles. So the news will always stay free, obviously, but the articles are behind the paywall, and there's quite a few coming ahead. If you want to see how that looks, there are some already on the webpage. For example, I've talked to the team from Digital Domain about Agatha All Along, the Marvel series this week, and it's going to be up next week, which is one of the nice things about online. You can't just push it out and be done. Oli Planck is working on articles as we speak, and one of them about a video monitor software through an iPad is coming online this afternoon or this evening, and all the authors are basically still on board. What I'm working on at the time, so basically until 10 minutes ago, and for the next couple of weeks will be the setup of this paywalled area, because what I've learned is that there's a lot of data about our subscribers, which I don't want anybody else to have. There are plans for the future that are not set in stone yet, but will happen in some way or another. I'm searching for platforms and tools to do that. I'm planning on doing regular hangouts, so once a month if you're not in a VFX hub where you can meet other artists. So let's do that online. Some form of hangout, having a couple of beers and moaning and groaning about the state of the industry. Other things that are planned are some things like webinars, where some of our authors said, well, I could do a video about that because you can't really explain it in words, or if you do, it's a giant story. So we're doing something like that, and direct contact to the authors. So if you read the workshop and you don't see if there is something you don't understand, you can just contact the author. Yeah, so these are the things that are on the immediate docket list. Other things will be that, for example, what I'm going to research later this evening. For example, access through Patreon if you don't want another different subscription and you already use their platform. So, but there are technical challenges and contracts and stuff to sign.
So with all that, if you would do an elevator pitch right now to somebody what digital production actually is, how would you describe that?
Digital production is what it always has been. It's a magazine for artists and by artists. How to do that, how to do the stuff, the actual work, how to use it, what the tools are, and the results are. This is going to stay the same. The thing that's changing will be the medium where we do that, which is online first, so to speak. And the future is that it will be developing more towards a everybody talks to everybody place to meet artists and people and supervisors and companies and all of this, and not just Bela telling you what's up. So I'm trying actively to get new voices into the magazine. So it's still called a magazine, but it's online. And this is the thing that's it's going to take some time, but the first people are already on board, and most of the authors, basically all of them I talked to so far, are still on board and are still partaking in this in our portal where we can talk to each other about how to do VFX, CGI, broadcast tech, animation, all of this.
Yeah, I mean, you gave me basically a cold call after you saw, I think, one of my FX PhD tutorials and asked me whether I would be interested to do that for a digital production magazine. Now, at that time, that felt really clumsy on my part because I thought like, okay, doing a tutorial on moving images in written form, that felt like dancing to architecture. But over the time, we really did some great articles and it was fun. And currently, I'm writing the first article for the new website. And already I'm really looking forward to use all the new possibilities that the digital distribution will offer. So I can only say working with Bela is always fun. So if you are inclined to write something up, a great story, a project you work on, give him a shout.
Writing for digital production is quite easy because you don't have to be a writer to do that. That's my job. That's what I'm doing. You just bring the pictures and the technical knowledge. So if you have something interesting to share, give me a line and we do the article. So you don't have to write all of this and do all the grammar and the text flow and the storytelling stuff. This is my part. So drop me a line if you have something interesting to show, or if you spend so much time figuring out a feature that you need to tell everybody about this. So yeah, it's still going to be the artist's magazine and not some marketing blurb. Most of the people who write for digital production keep on doing that because there's something strangely fun about actually talking about your work without having to dumb it down. At digital production, when you talk about your work, you can talk in detail. Anything you want to talk about, that's fine, because our readers are usually smart enough and close enough to the stuff the other artists do that they actually do understand. Basically, writing for digital production is like meeting after a trade show at the bar with all your colleagues. So, and that's the way it should be, and that's the way it's going to stay.
So at the beginning of our little talk, you said that you not only own the asset of digital production, but also the Animago Award. Tell us a little bit about that.
Animago Award and Conference, as it's called, is the has been around since 1996 as well, and has shifted locations a couple of times, and is the award, in my opinion, the best award for CG, animation, visual effects, and we always did new emerging technologies. We did VR stuff many years ago, 3D stuff. It's always changing, it's always evolving, like the industry. And the reason I think it's the best award, because it's not judged by committee or something, but the jury is always actual artists, experienced people who do the work, and it's not a requirement to have a budget of more than 10 million to just partake it at all. So yeah, there's always been different categories, but the main thing is always it's been, again, for artists, by artists, and the award itself is always great fun, because the award show is 3 hours of the best stuff you've seen in ages. And I've seen stuff at Animago which I still watch regularly to this day, many years later. So yeah, the head of the jury, Günther Hagedorn, is also still on board. He's been with Animago since the very first iteration, and we're working to get that going again, which is difficult, as you can imagine. But we're currently looking for partners for locations and see what's happening. So the Animago never came back from the Corona break, so now it's been sleeping a couple of years and should be rested, and we'll see what we can do in 2026 or late 2025. No ideas yet, because all of this currently is quite fresh, and we're still talking to people and thinking about whom to talk to.
So let us do a quick recap on what is coming now.
In a very short version, digital production is going to stay the same. Animago is coming back at some point in the future, and we're just shifting mediums. So from a purely print magazine to an online magazine, which will be available to anybody. If you're a subscriber, I will write to you, and you can decide if you want to stay with that. And if you think that, oh, this sounds interesting, very soon you can subscribe. Currently, it's not technically possible, but all of these things are coming in the next few weeks and months, because it's quite difficult to do. Right.
Well, we'll keep you updated here on the podcast, and thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and I really look forward to seeing you back as my co-host in the new segment.
So, what a plethora. But, so that's that, and let's talk about some news. There's been not that much stuff because, well, it's the beginning of the year, everybody's gearing up for ISE and NAP and stuff like that. But a couple of companies released some interesting things. One of my neighbors did something really, really nice, because down the street, there's Arri. They released the Alexa 35 base model, which sounds strange, because usually Arri doesn't do low-cost things.
Yeah, also I think they rebranded the existing Arri Alexa 35 to the premium. So now we've got the Arri Alexa 35 base and the premium.
Yeah, and between that are a couple of different versions, which is unusual for them. So the idea is you get the 35 with same sensor, same body. One button has different color, but that's just for the rental houses to keep them apart. Yes. And and the thing is, it's way cheaper than the normal one, but you get all the same hardware. So where's the price difference? What they're trying something new, which is that you can rent or subscribe to some of the features. So you buy one camera, and if you have a small production or some documentary thing, and you just say, okay, for this job I need this and this and this feature, and that it gets unlocked by a license, which is interesting. It's new. There's obviously there's a premium license where everything is unlocked, and then you're basically at the price of the usual Alexa 35. That comes in permanently at 19,000 euros. And all of these licenses you can have either permanent, when you say, okay, I want this camera for this stuff, permanent, or you can rent it for 7 days, 30 days, or a year. So basically a week, a month, a year. And then there's different things you can rent on a case-by-case basis or a week-by-week basis. For example, there is the 120 FPS license. Want to guess what this unlocks?
Speed.
The base model goes up to 60 frames per second, and with this license for 180 euros a week, you can go up to 120 frames per second if you need that. If you don't need that, don't get this license. The same thing is with the Arri RAW license. So usually the thing records in ProRes, and so if you pay 360 euros for a month, this time not a week, then you can record in Arri RAW, and we all know that's one of the more versatile codecs out there, and
proved by many VFX supervisors out there.
Also you have with an Arri sensor and the Arri codec, so if you need this kind of image quality, you can go for that. Another one is the OG anamorphic.
I think that means that you actually can access the full sensor.
Open gate, I know. So you have open gate recording formats, but I wanted to make the OG original gangster joke.
Sorry for disturbing your street credibility.
If you want to go full open gate, you can do that with this license, or you can have the anamorphic recording formats or the D-squeeze in the monitor path. So again, 180 euros a week, 360 for a month, or 1,800 euros for the whole year. So the longer you take it, the cheaper you get.
And then they've got this funny looks feature also, where you can basically burn in your grading inside of the camera. This one thing that nobody in our industry wants.
One other license they have is a pre-recording feature, so it has 30 seconds or something.
20, I think, 20.
Which is quite good if you're doing sports stuff and things like that, and Arri cameras are also used for that. And yeah, then the look license, where you have the textures, the look library, and the custom color management. In defense of that feature, for VFX, it's horrible. We don't want that. But in certain other stuff, especially broadcasting, documentary, and all the other boring things without VFX, that's apparently getting quite common. So I think that's quite a good idea for something as premium as a high-end cinema camera.
Yeah, it should open up Arri to I would not say like semi-pro stuff, but more to people who are on a budget, but for a very specific planned idea can now afford an Arri, rather than to buy or rent the full Monty, which would make the thing much too expensive. So I think this is a good approach without diluting the premium brand that Arri is by nature.
What I like about this idea is coming from the perspective of the rental houses. So you're going to have, let's say, 10, 35 bases, and the customer says, oh, I need to do high frame rate shots, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. So you as a rental house can just say, all right, I take one of my 10 cameras and I don't have to have one for high frame rates and one for this and one for that. You have a number of cameras and you can just rent them out by feature, and you don't have to pick and choose which one to. So this should make things a bit more flexible, and as we've seen in the last few years, flexibility pays off.
Also, I think it makes on-set work much more flexible. So if you opt to pay the price for an Arri Alexa 35 base, and then on-set you realize that you actually need high frame rates or RAW for the VFX guys or whatever, then you don't have to change your entire setup. You don't even have to get the camera out of the rig, but rather you license that option and you can start rolling again.
And also you have the advantage if the special DOP on this project comes with his scarf and his French beret and says, well, I need to shoot anamorphic. You can say, well, this is going to cost this much. Is it really that much better? And probably the answer is going to be, no.
Let me ask you, when was the last time you were on set? Because this cliche of the French beret and the scarf.
I haven't seen one of those DOPs in a while, but I regularly hear they are still out there. They are still out there.
The attitude is there. I just feel like the haute couture is something different by now. But yeah, I agree. The attitude is still out there.
A stylish understanding what is modern these days.
We all age more or less gracefully.
Yes. This DOP has to have his vision realized, and the director just can't stand them anymore. Now has a number to say, listen, we can do this, and it's going to cost this much. Shall this come out of your budget or another one?
Well, the cynic in me would say that this opt-in, opt-out feature will make that discussion much more prevailing on set, because there's not this point where you say, well, now we have to choose whether we go all in or go with a cheaper camera, but rather, yeah, let's see if we really need it. We'll book it in if we need it. So it's a double-edged sword.
Let's see how that goes. We're going to hear about it, mostly moaning either way, I think.
In other news for all the compers and finishers out there, Flame has released 2025.2. So this actually makes a version of Flame 2025 appear in the year 2025, which in of itself it's great. But there are some nice additions, like with the previous point releases. Those are not like the major big features, but more nice isolated features or quality of life improvements.
And bug fixes, obviously.
And bug fixes, which actually are quite a lot. And it's really nice. If you are in the Flame community, they always post like the user reported bugs that were fixed in that version, and that list usually is pretty long. So reporting your bugs sometimes actually helps. But back to the features. So the biggest one is, once again, an AI feature. Yay! We've got AI-powered morph dissolve. Now, once this nasty little feature appeared in Premiere and other NLEs, online and finishing had to work with sudden jump morphs where suddenly 10 frames where somebody had a moment or something were cut out of an interview, and suddenly we had to transition over. Something that worked for maybe broadcast, but in high-end productions, this was really nasty and often resulted in really, really long morphs. Now, this feature tries to address that. First results were quite positive from what I've heard. I haven't played around with it myself. The second feature is compatibility with the DaVinci Resolve Exchange format. So that should streamline some processes, yes. Last but not least, and this is something I look really forward to, we now finally got background rendering on the Mac platform. So up until now, you had background rendering only on Linux. So either if you had two graphic boards of the same make and model, then there would just be one for the GUI and everything on screen, and there would be one just doing the background rendering, which is kind of a brute force approach. A couple of versions back, they introduced memory allocation for that graphics board, so you could decide if you want, for example, to give 50% to the GUI and 50% to the background rendering, but that was a Linux feature only. With 2025.2, this is now also available on Mac, and you've got different functionalities, so you can either say, I want Flame to render as soon as I move my cursor to another frame, and then all the changes you made get immediately rendered, or you can send off a task to render in the background, and then once it's finished, it gets dropped into your timeline. And this feature is available on the timeline, in the Effects tab, in Batch Effects, and in Batch itself.
So, considering that with the background rendering, that this has been available in many other editors for some time in different versions, there's different ways to do that with external software or whatever. So, is Flame becoming an editing station?
Well, I think you could make the argument that it has been becoming that somewhat for a couple of years. It has also become a grading setup. It has also become a finishing hub. So I would say from 2015, 2016 onwards, the clear direction was to position Flame as a visual hub. So the idea is to conform there, connected conform being the big feature there,
which is
then distribute shots across
connected conform is one of the standout features of Flame. If you haven't
and one of the best kept secrets of the industry, because nobody tells about
if
that.
If you haven't talked, it sounds stupidly boring, but once you're actually working with it, it is effing amazing.
Especially on commercial projects, and that I think connected conform actually is why Flame still has such a sweet spot in the commercial industry. Because imagine a typical job where you've got a 60 second, a 30 second, a 20 second, a 25 second, a 15 second, 7-second commercial in 16 by 9, 9 by 16, 1 by 1, 4 by 5, and whatever format the internet just fell in love with. And you have to do that in German and English, in generic versions, and so forth and so forth. So I had jobs where I think the biggest number was 277 versions of the same commercial. And they all resort back to the same footage. And the unique part of connected conform is to keep all those different versions connected. So if I replace, for example, one shot in my 60-second commercial, 16 by 9, with a new version that I receive from my Nuke artist, for example, then connected conform makes sure that this gets shared across all the different versions to all the formats I just named. And it's a really powerful feature. It's not something that works out of the box, just click it and you're done. You have to familiarize yourself with the logic behind it.
Once it's set up, it works.
Yes. And there are artists out there who are very well in demand because they can play this like a piano. They can have all those versions under control and make it a breeze. And so, yeah. But we digress. I would say Flame has become this finishing hub. And yes, there are people out there, maybe former Smoke or Fire artists, but also people new to Flame who just edit because they want to edit on the same box that they finish on. So yeah, I would not go so far as to name Flame a dedicated editing solution, but the editing features in there have become quite powerful. There is, of course, and there always has to be, another AI news piece. And this one is so big that it even appeared in the general media. And that is the release of DeepSeek, a small Chinese startup encoded an AI model, which is right now trending #1 on the Google Play and the Apple App Store, and got quite a shakeup through the NVidia stock, didn't it?
It shook up many stocks, because so the thing is, it's not better than other large language models, but it runs locally, it runs on smaller hardware, and it's free, it's open source, you can do with it what you want.
And it was, I think, developed at a fraction of the cost of OpenAI and Gemini and so forth.
At the current time, there were, I think, something about 20 billions lost in stock market because everybody was panicking. So why is that important? It's not the model itself. It's nice to run. It's basically like any other, works like any other LLM. But this is the first thing where the bubble is starting to burst, because apparently you don't need the giant cards. You don't need a nuclear power plant to run your training data center or something like that. So that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I found that quite interesting, the way how it coincided with this announcement of Stargate, this $500 billion AI infrastructure project in the United States, and by magic 1 week later, suddenly DeepSeek appears and tells you, yeah, that's really interesting what you're doing there, but why do you need that? So, and also the really how fragile the investors were, and how immediately they pulled out quite a lot of money out of these industries. So yeah, it really underscores how much of a bubble this right is, and just why are we telling you this? Basically, because we don't think AI is irrelevant, but we just want to scale down the hype train just a little bit and just bring it into normal proportions. Because for better or worse, this is what DeepSeek has done. It's basically pulled out the rug under OpenAI's feet. And so this is gonna stay interesting. I think we are entering the next phase in AI development.
Also, we see that apparently, just because nobody has done it yet, it doesn't mean that you have to buy 1,000 cards to run something locally. And the development is ongoing, and the big companies are currently not that interested in changing their business model. So maybe we're going to see some new cheap models around very soon.
This kind of competition, somebody challenging the status quo and the whole mindset of this has to be done a specific way, always leads to more innovation. So yeah, might be interesting.
Twixtor, which we all know and love by Revision FX, did something that's unusual for plugins, because they brought out a standalone version of their Twixtor plugin. You have the full-fat Twixtor thing. There's nothing cheap or light or something about it, including the machine learning stuff and the precision mode and so on. And it's just a single application which you can put wherever you like. Twixtor is for retiming shots and doing artificial time lapse and what's the time lapse?
Slow motions.
Slow motions, thank you. Things like that, and it does that very well, but you always had to have a host application. So if you already have it, so why change it? But since when you do big things, it can take some time, and this way you can just, for example, have the Twixtor standalone version on a machine in a server room or on a virtual machine, and just send it and let it do its thing. So this is quite good. It's also not terribly expensive. So the standalone version costs $150. Currently it's discounted, going down to $100. So that's not a big investment. So if you want to try, and they always have the best test videos where they play around with dogs and let them go fast or slow, whatever.
One other thing, we've been babbling about FMX the whole time, The tickets for FMX 2025 happening from May 6th to May 9th in Stuttgart on site, and I think until June 10th online are now on sale. So if you want to catch yourself an early bird special, head on over to the FMX conference website.
And this year they have a new type of pass, a networkers pass basically, so you can go everywhere but the talks. So if you're just there to meet people and get free pens and see the trade floor and the universities and stuff and the evening events, you can just have a cheaper version of that. Also, apparently there's also a business pass where you get a special business lounge. And okay, I don't know what the lounge will look like because that's new, and we're gonna try to crash it.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a sneak peek and tell you about it.
So this will be where the hat and the nose come back in.
I think that covers us about it, but we have got, or rather you've got, a little tooltip for us, right?
Yeah, for those patient enough to wait for this, you get a tooltip. So do you know that feeling where it's Monday morning, you had a hard weekend, you come back onto your screen and you think, does this look right? So you don't want to get out the full colorimeter setup or do the tests. Sometimes it would be nice to have a set of measuring tools for your screen that doesn't cost anything, that's just a link to click. Well, turns out our friends at Eizo have something for us. It is just a very basic website where you can choose which tests you want to run on your screen. Test images, you can check for dead pixels, you can test for homogeneity, you can test for the
reaction time.
Yes, and the way that your system renders text, and also there's tests for the angle, viewing angle, the gamma, and how colors change. So you start the test. It tells you to go for 100%, and then you have a regular color checker chart, so you can just see, all right, what's what. And you just scroll through for pixel mistakes and pixels in black, gray, and white, and the usual RGB colors, which is just a full screen clear color, and you can see, okay, there's a dead one there, there's a dead one there. Also, you can have some gradients where you can decide how many steps you want in them, from which direction to which direction, which is also something I use quite often if I'm checking out a new monitor. This is one of the first things I do to see if the manufacturer even tried a calibration or if they didn't.
Also detecting bending and all this kind of
all
stuff.
These things. So then there's also a text version, because I don't know if you know, but different operating systems render text differently. Yeah, something where you can check the viewing angle, which is also quite helpful if you're setting up your screen in a different configuration for some reason, because change desk or something. This is something that's quite helpful. And then there's gamma, where you can just see what's happening, and you can always check with the Eizo logo in between. Then you have a reaction time, where you can see the speed per second per pixel and so forth, to see if, for example, your frame rate from the screen is correct. Yeah, and that's it. It's free. The link will be in the description. And one of the tools you should always have available. And also, because the Eizo guys are quite good guys, it's not just for Eizo screens. You can do this on any screen you want.
So this concludes our little look into the crystal ball, what's going to happen in 2025. Of course, we've got no idea. We're just guessing. But let's see what's happening in the next month, and we'll take it from there, step by step. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.